take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy?
I'm a human being, god damn it! My life has value! It's time to ask yourself what you believe.
Mass murder, torture, perjury, embezzlement, fraud, deception, treason. These are just a few of your many crimes against humanity. You will not win this war, for you are fighting the very essence of humanity.
Hey, welcome to Truth or Talk. I'm April Bowden.
And Christine Henry.
You can check out our website at truthertalk.com, see our archive shows, our essays, all kinds of stuff. Our Conspiracy Realist t-shirt is still available, and all of that good stuff. So, hey, Christine, what's up?
What's up, dude? I'm so excited. As always, I'm always excited, right? I think I'm excited, but I'm excited. Again.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited again, too. I like this, you found this guy, Jamie DeWolf, who's going to be our next guest, and he's a performer. He does slam poetry and spoken word, and he's really good. I liked his stuff that you sent me on. He talks about his lineage. He's the great-grandson of L. Ron Hubbard, who's the founder of Scientology, and so he's pretty honest in his discussion of it and everything, and his stuff is good, and I'd be curious to see some of his live performances, because, you know, that seems like what he specializes in. But we always like to have artists. And
yeah,
right?
Yeah, we're trying to get more artists. We haven't had a lot on, because we're both artists. It does that. We have a lot of doctors and authors, which is great, too. We want to have a mix of people on, but I'm always excited to get, like, a fellow artist on. So,
yeah.
And he, even though he is L. Ron Hubbard's great-grandson, his stuff is, he doesn't, you know, his stuff isn't mainly about that, but he has some really good slam poetry himself that he does, and he also has, like, he has other people he hosts Tourette's Without Regrets. I think there are other people that, if you type in Tourette's Without Regrets, you can, on YouTube, you can go see some of the slam poetry or spoken word, which is amazing. I always love that stuff. And then you can also, he's also in a trio called the Suicide Kings. You can probably type that up and check out some of his stuff. I'm going to encourage you to. It's really entertaining, really thought-provoking, too. And some of it's very comical, too. Some of it's like watching stand-up. So if you're into that, if you like stand-up comedy and stuff, I think you would, if you can stomach, like, Bill Hicks and who's the other one? George Carlin and any of the kind of, like, really honest, thought-provoking comedians, you can definitely, you know, I think this is something you definitely like, the slam poetry stuff, so it's really cool.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, definitely. I liked what I've seen so far of his stuff, and it'll be fun to talk to him. He's got like you said, he's got a good sense of humor, like it's partially comical, and it's interesting because we also we're interested in, like, the cult aspect. We wanted to know more about cults, you know, in general, and, like, how people get involved in cults and how people get sucked into cults and how mind control works. Because we've talked before on our show about, like, MK Ultra and other kinds of forms of the government using mind control. But Scientology is a religion, and, you know, all religions kind of use some sort of manipulation to a certain extent, but they're very unique in that they're pretty, like, aggressive, and they I don't know.
Not at first.
Not necessarily at first. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I mean, I had a roommate in college who was a Scientologist, or she wasn't a Scientologist when I knew her. She escaped from Scientology. So by the time that I knew her, her mother had taken her and her brother and escaped, and she would tell me all these horror stories about how when they tried to leave, you know, like her mother and her brother would always be followed, and they would harass them, and they would come out to her house and sit outside her window. Now, at the time, it's weird because I don't know, I think I've always been pretty open, but I never thought she was crazy. Because I was always like, well, I don't know everything that's going on in the world. Who am I to label her as crazy, So I never thought she was crazy. But because she wasn't really a nice person, I didn't really care. This sounds like fucked up, but I didn't care because if somebody's, not really nice to you, you might listen or hear what they have to say, but you're not going to really care. So I just kind of like shrugged it off and was like, okay, whatever, And now I see all of these videos of people coming out and talking about their experiences in Scientology, and they match hers, So it's even more confirmation that she's telling the truth. And she would tell me, basically, they have slaves. They don't call them slaves, but they employ people that work for them for for cents a day, under the Sea Org. They get people that are, teenagers. Some people are born into it. Their families are born, or they're born into it because their mother, father, or other family members were in it, and they really don't know anything else, which is kind of sad. They don't really know what's healthy. I was always going to say they don't know what's normal, but for them that is normal, so they don't really know what's healthy, basically, I would say. And, I mean, you've had people that have come out through the years, like the niece of the president now, David Miscavige. His niece has come out and she's left Scientology. And it's harder to leave when you've been in it for years, too, because you're also not only you're people. Because I was talking to my cousin, she was like, well, why can't they just leave? And I was like, well, when you get into a cult too, it's your life, right? Imagine having the life that you have now and just leaving all of your family and friends. I mean, that's what these people have to give up. They have to give up their life. I mean, they're giving up their life in exchange for a freer, better life, but at the same time, this is all they know. So if you're a child that's been born into Scientology, your mom, your dad, your brother, are in it, your friends, everybody that you know are in it, you're leaving everybody. And you don't really, you're not allowed to talk to them. They'll cut you off. That's one of the ways that they use to control you, is that if you leave, you're never going to talk to your brother or sister or mother again, And they'll tell them, they're brainwashed to, they label you as a suppressive person, basically, or an SP. And they'll tell you that you can't come back. So I feel bad for a lot of these people. A lot of people, want to say things like, oh, well, I will never fall for anything like that because I'm just too smart. Those people must be dumb. And I think it has nothing to do with intelligence whatsoever. Some of these people are extremely brilliant, extremely smart. It's something else. It's some other factor it's not an intellectual. Did you ever hear about that cult that was in Japan? That it was years ago. I want to say it was over a decade ago, and they got together and they put sarin gas in the subways and killed some people and injured like 1,000 people and killed maybe 19 or 20 people. No. Something like that. I can't think of the name of the cult. Maybe after break when we come back for our extra, I'll be able to find more info on that. But I was just thinking of that at the top of my head because a lot of the people in that cult were scientists and doctors. And they were able to, and chemists and stuff. So they actually made the sarin. They didn't steal it. They knew how to make stuff like that, like gases and interesting enough too, the leader of that cult was blind. Blind. Wow. Yeah. It's an interesting story. I'll see if I can send you some stuff on it. I think you'd find that interesting. But I don't know, I think with cults, there's something that people are missing, like their lost souls or something that, people, you identify a need in somebody, and then you match that need, and then you get people to trust you, and then they, then you can manipulate them easily, basically, once you have your trust. And I was looking at this one thing on Charles Manson, and one of his followers says, because she's been outspoken now about what went on and what she was going through and her perspective of the world at the time, and she said something like, Charles Manson would be very caring. He would work on your inadequacies and your needs, right? So he'd be like, oh, you're bad at this. Well, let me help you. Let me work on it. Let's do it together, And then, he'd help maybe take away your fear. So there is an element of goodness at first, And then he would say, every night, or this person said, every night he would talk to talk about what your parents did to you, you know, like they were wrong and you were the bright ones. And he just, you know, she explained it this way. She said he just knew what people needed, you know, and then he drew out all the need and became everything that we wanted.
Right.
And I think that's the basis of any cult. And with Scientology, they're really good because I think that they do know about the human psyche. And it's ironic because they talk about psychiatry being a pseudoscience and how it's bad, which I agree with, but at the same time, they're basically taking all the techniques that psychiatry has used to manipulate people and using it for themselves under another name, so they're hypocrites, you know. They're using it for evil, you know. They're using it to manipulate people and to steal their minds and their souls. You know, there's a good side to this. You can show people how to empower themselves because there's a lot of knowledge as human beings that we are not taught, that I know that has been hidden from us by design, purposely. But you give that information to people and let them empower themselves and then let them go out into the world. But instead, what cults do, they give them a little bit, they show them a little fleck of that, and then they kind of dangle a carrot in front of a person's face, right? They're like, oh, you want more, you know? And then they keep you dependent, basically. So then they're sucking out your money, your energy, you know, and that's how they get people, like, hooked. And then before you know it, that's your life. You're in this world where you have, you know, your family, they become your family, they become your life, and then you don't want to, and then you don't have any money because they take your money, they barely pay you. So how are you going to go out into the world with no skills? And then you're in this organization. You've been working like a slave for them. You have no skills. It's just a terrible predicament to be in. I feel so bad for the people that, you know, feel like they're stuck. But at the same time, I commend and I highly respect and admire the people who have the balls, the guts to leave.
Did you, I mean, working as an actress in Hollywood, did you ever come across people, not necessarily famous people, but just like people who were trying to become actors and stuff who got into Scientology?
I'm trying to think. No, and interestingly enough, the group of artists that I grew up with, you know, I'm born and raised in Los Angeles. I went to Hollywood High, and the Scientology, the blue building that you've probably seen on the TV or whatever is not far from my school, and they also own a lot of real estate in Hollywood. But interestingly enough, I think we kind of sat back and watched what happened to other people. Sometimes I think when you go up in a place and you see all this going on, you know to, like, steer clear.
Right.
Like, my roommate that was in college with me, she was born into it. That was the only person I knew personally that was a Scientologist. But as far as my other friends, we just knew better. You know, and my dad would always scare the hell out of me every time we drive down Sunset past the blue building. He would always, like, look me dead in the eye and be like, that's a cult. Don't, you know, tell me. Because I think my dad had a little bit of experience, too, when he moved out from Colorado. He had these people, I guess he was in whatever predicament he was in, I don't really exactly know the details, but he said that these people, like, took him in and, you know, let them stay with him for a while, and he was, they were really nice. He was like, they're really nice and everything, but then, you know, he found that they were Scientologists, and basically they wouldn't, you know, they wouldn't help him out, or unless he joined. And then he kind of started looking into it, and he knew, he was like, this shit's weird, I don't get it, you know, which I think it's sad though too, because I think that there are people that have organizations or that are making explorations where they actually are trying to, you know, look at the human potential in all its entirety for the best that human beings can be, and it's sad because people don't really. You know, people steer clear of that too because they don't want to get sucked up in a cult. But I think if people understand what cults were, how they operate, you know, they'd maybe be more open to trying new things and yeah. I mean, I think I did lab work, like over 10 years ago, and people said that's a cult. I would disagree. However, I thought it was a cult before I did it, and I did it to see if it was a cult.
You were curious? Yeah,
I did it to see if it was a cult, and I wanted to make sure, because I had a friend that did it, and he just been through some really just soul scratching things, or in his life. And at the time, he wasn't a happy person. He wasn't a nice person. I could see his life going downhill. And he did it. And I just saw him, a complete 360 in him. And I was like, oh my God, my best friend's in a cult. I mean, we had a fight. We didn't speak for a year, and then we reunited. And then, but the next time I saw him, he was just like this totally different person. And I was like, he's in a cult. They've taken his brain. His soul's locked up in a jar.
Right.
So what am I going to do to, either get his soul back, or, I was younger, so I was like, what is this place? What are they doing? So I went to a few meetings, and we actually had some friends to do it. And then it took me a whole year to do it, because I actually wanted to do research on cults and what's cults were, and is this a cult? So I was extremely curious. But I wanted to know also, how could I protect myself if it was a cult. So I basically, I did it, and I liked it. And I think if I had to sum it up, it basically is a weekend seminar. And there are other ones too. There's like Psi seminars. There's probably other ones that I don't know. But they're, basically you do it, and it basically forces you to sit in a room with people and talk about your shit. You know what I mean? Like, which you can get other ways. Some people it's therapy, but I think with therapy, I think it's like drawn out. And I'm not saying, like over the years, it's drawn out. And I think with therapy, from the people that I know that have gone through therapy, even if you have a therapist, you are still the person that comes to the conclusion. The conclusions about yourself and what you need to do with your life, as opposed to the therapist. And I think that's kind of drawn out over years, months or years, however long you go to therapy, before you kind of realize that, okay, I'm straight, I don't really need a therapist anymore. But I think this is the thing that's dynamic about doing like these weekend seminars, is that you really forced to sit in a room and just deal with yourself, which people don't do. And they have so many distractions, TV, drugs, other people's drama, that kind of don't let you deal with that. And at the same time, you see other people dealing with their shit, and they basically have a lot of them have the same problems you are, but we've been so slivered and, divided and conquered that we don't even look at other people as other races, other socioeconomic groups, other age groups as other human beings. But I think when you're in this environment, I was exposed to all these types of people, that it just, put everything in perspective for me, and it made me realize that, we all are alike. As cheesy as it sounds, we are alike. We all have the same problems. We all have the same wants and needs. Black, white, whatever country you are, socioeconomic group. I think the socioeconomic thing was really huge for me, because I definitely been exposed to people of different races. My family's mixed, so I kind of get the race thing, that how we're all together and we're all one. But as far as like people that were richer than me, I never really thought about that they had problems too. I know that sounds like shallow, but at the time, I know my mind wasn't there. So it was really cool for me. But I can see too, also with something like Landmark or Psi, that you can still become dependent on it. So it might have a little bit of cult-like potential. But the thing that I would say is different between that and Scientology is that you get deep into it, you can still leave. They're not going to follow you. They're not going to blackmail you. As far as I know, they don't do that. And as far as I know, they don't take your confessions and use them against you like Scientology does. Now, they're really persistent, and they're really committed, as I would like to say. So if you're going to, they have another class. Like, there are like 3 classes, I think. There's like the first class, and then there's like the advanced course, and there's like the wisdom course. And I felt like I got what I needed out of the first course. But they wanted me to take the advanced course. I was like, I don't really want to. It's a lot of money, blah, blah, blah. And, they were committed to trying to get me to see. But afterwards, I was like, no, dude, just don't call me anymore. I'm straight. They left me alone. But as far as Scientology, they would, it's crazy. You get too deep. They'll follow you. They'll blackmail you. They'll, it can get just pretty insane.
Yeah, it's true. I know Scientology is really unusual, and I wonder, I don't really know why it attracts so many celebrities. I guess that's why I asked you about the Hollywood thing, because it seems like if you're up and coming and you're trying to become an actor, you're going to sort of emulate what some of the big celebrities are doing. So when you see like Tom Cruise or John Travolta or some of these people who are really, Will Smith, and they're really big and famous and rich, you go, oh, I want to like do what they're doing in order to get that way.
And I think some people are lured like that. And they do have it's on Franklin, they have a celebrity center.
I've seen it, yeah.
If your religion supposedly you're like, putting celebrities in the limelight, it just seems like a bit of a contradiction. But anyway, yeah, I mean, they do that. They have courses. They have acting classes. They have confidence courses, communication courses, and I think that I've known a few people that have taken those, and they say, oh, that they've been really helpful. But and then it's like they kind of lure you in by certain courses, and then if you like that and you see an improvement like from that, then they'll just try and lure you in a little more until you're basically you're sucked in. I'm trying to think. I mean, as far personally, I just knew better to answer your question. I just knew better, and thank God I did. I've always had curiosity about it, but after my roommate told me all this stuff, I was just over it. I'm like, I'm not going through that. Yeah, like, it's sad because I think if it wasn't such a parasitic, demonic organization that can use the information that they have to really truly empower people, but then that would mean that they wouldn't make as much money. But it's sad that that's the turn that it's taken, and that it's divided families, and it's caused people to commit suicide, and it's really, really unfortunate.
Yeah, that's really sad if people take it that far, and it's not, I mean, they're certainly not the only cult out there, but they really do seem to be a very powerful one. And they seem to be kind of, even though they get exposed, they still seem to be like hanging in there. A lot of times these cults, they get exposed and then that's the end of them. I don't know, yeah,
I want to just go back to your first question you were asking me.
Yeah,
It is, but they are smart or in taking the power of celebrity, because we've talked about this on the show before, that celebrity is the power itself. So they're basically taking that, because this is how the elite people get people to spread their agenda too, is through a celebrity. So they figure that out too, to get people to spread their ideas, either through the celebrities talking about them themselves, or promising people that they could achieve celebrity status through or by being in the Church of Scientology.
Right.
They're highly litigious too, so they know how to cover up stuff too for you.
Yeah. They seem to be wealthy.
Oh, they're billionaires. They're billionaires. Yeah, they have billions of dollars. They do, and they own a lot of real estate in Hollywood as well.
And I'm sure that these Hollywood people give them more, too. It just keeps making them richer. It's really weird. So, and they're still, even though they're getting exposed, they're still kind of a mystery, in a lot of ways. So it's an interesting topic, and I'm glad we're going to be talking to Jamie. So let's take a short break here. And when we get back, y'all stay with us, because we're going to be talking to Jamie DeWolf, artist, stage performer, spoken word, and also coincidentally, the great-grandson of L. Ron Hubbard. So this should be really very interesting guy. So please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hello, thanks for having me on your radio. Even though we're not from a famous rock and roll band, if we were, even though we sound a little like we are, we definitely wear a Conspiracy Realist t-shirt, because they're gear, aren't they? Oh yeah, they're really gear. I want to write a song about them. Conspiracy Realist t-shirts at truthatease.com. I gotta think of the middle eight. Shop.truthatease.com. What does that mean? It's the internet. What's that? I don't know. It's a net. It's between things. Shop.truthatease.com. What's that? It's where you get Conspiracy Realist t-shirts. Oh, gear.
Welcome back. On today's show, we have Jamie DeWolf. Jamie is a performer, filmmaker, and producer. He is best known for his work with the slam poetry trio, the Suicide Kings, hosting Tourette's Without Regrets at the Oakland Metro Opera House, and for his work as a producer on NPR's Snap Judgment. In 2012, DeWolf directed, wrote, and starred in the feature film Smoked. He is also great-grandson of the author and Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard and an outspoken critic of the Church of Scientology. You can find more about Jamie and his work at jamiedewolf.com. Please welcome Jamie DeWolf to the show. Hi, Jamie. How are you?
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. Are you just waking up? Is it good morning for you?
Yeah, well, a bit, yes. Had a show last night, and this is why I'm awake right now.
Okay. Question number one. Are you ready? Can you handle this? All right.
I'm ready.
All right. Are you aware that redheads are the white people of the black race?
I am a genetic mutant. We're less than 1% of the world's population, and so we are a true minority. And according to geneticists, that we will all be extinct by 2050. So basically, I'm telling anybody who's got a redhead fetish, the time is now. Grab and breed with a pale, freckled little ginger, because we are on our way out. Yeah, we're actually, I'm literally allergic to the sun. Me and my brother, we're just like allergic to the sun. I mean, I can't go outside without putting on sunscreen like every 2 hours. And we're just like, our great-grandfathers are Gollum, you know what I mean? Like, we just come out of caves. So, we are a rare and dwindling breed.
Well, hear that, April? My co-host is a redhead, so.
Yeah, I'm a ginger too. So.
Oh, check you out.
Yeah.
I wonder if we do attracted to each other if we met in person, or if our DNA would repel each other from each other.
I don't know. Yeah, it's a 90 about a 90 SPF on me. So yeah, I think.
Yeah. Let me guess,
yep.
You don't date a lot of redheads yourself.
No, my husband's a redhead too.
Yeah, actually.
He's a redhead. They're like, it's cute.
Yep. Well, my kids, they're ish. They don't have necessarily. They're not super gingery, but they definitely got the freckles going. So they've got the gene. And as you've probably seen in our genetics, as much as we seem like we would be the recessive gene, it just combats everybody else. So you could like mate with somebody who's, from Saudi Arabia, dark skin, dark hair, and then they'll still come out red hair and freckles.
Well, my grandmother was a redhead. My grandmother's half black, half Irish, so she was a redhead. She was freckles.
Yeah.
My daughter thankfully did not come out redhead. I was actually a little terrified about that, and she managed to jump. She managed to not get it, so she got my pointy nose and pointy chin, but she did not get the freckled allergic to suddenness of the ginger. But if she ever does have kids, she's going to have to combat that. I have redheads on two sides of my family, so my the Elron side, and then also my dad's side. He also had a few redheads in there, so we were pretty much set up to be pale.
Yeah, right. It's true. Yeah, but you still need your vitamin D, though, so you can't go out and complete. But it doesn't take long for us. It's like a good 5-10 minutes, and you're all square. You're set. You've had enough sun. Then you start slathering on. Yeah. So, how did you become inspired to do your spoken word? I saw some of your slam poetry. It was really good. I really liked it a lot. And so, what was your inspiration?
Wow, that's interesting. I was always writing ever since I can remember. Since I was a kid, I would be just writing. And ironically, L. Ron was one of my earliest inspirations when I was a kid. And because I just knew that you could be a writer and do that. And pretty much I was just always like writing this crazy stuff and stories and getting in trouble for it for a long time. And spoken word was kind of an interesting, weird blend. I just gotten to a point where I was tired of writing scripts, tired of writing just sort of like these large-scale things that I wanted something that was very easily done solo, and that is kind of what led to spoken word. I mean, I felt like I was kind of doing it even before I knew what I was doing. I'd write these long streets, and then I would write these long streets and just be reading them and yelling at people in parks, and like, you know, take my friends out and just be like, here, sit down, let me read you these things. And I would just like, you know, just go off and just be like ranting and reading and foaming at the mouth at all these different long pieces. And I had no idea what I was trying to do or what it was, and had many models for it. And then I started trying to go to open mics, and then I kept getting kicked out of every open mic, and then I found a flyer for a poetry slam that was in San Francisco, and I was actually the San Francisco Slam Finals, and I went to it and just completely changed everything.
How did you?
Because I was like, oh, this is what I was looking for.
How did you get kicked out of the open mics? Like, what did you say? Like that?
I mean, well, as many poetry open mics these days are. I mean, poetry is a very quaint art form for a lot of it. That to me, I kind of, you know, grew up with Bukowski and Stephen Jesse Bernstein, and just like different styles of kind of hard-edged writing. And also, I was, you know, influenced a lot by monologists like Eric Bogosian and, you know, stand-up comedy like, you know, Bill Hicks and Sam Kinison and stuff. And so, to me, it was kind of just like writing just all these kind of different hard-edged rants and anthemic kind of confessional things, and just a lot of different strange stuff. But a lot of it was very, very autobiographical, and just my life itself was profoundly offensive at these open mics. I mean, I was reading about self-mutilation or like sadomasochistic sex, and, you know, I was like 20 years old, and a lot of these people at these open mics are, you know, in their 50s, and they're reading about kites and sunsets.
Flowers and
I mean, yeah, they literally were. I remember a guy, you know, I remember literally the last show I did that I got kicked out of, this guy did this whole poem about a bike ride where he is sad as the rain because his heart is full of pain. And he goes on this bike ride, and he sees this little kid smile at him, and it changes his whole bright day. And he's like, because what can't change, you know, my smile? It took me a while, but there was the kid, and then, you know, he gave me this trial, and there was my, you know, whatever. And it was like he changes his attitude because this kid smiles at him. And I literally read after him, and I had like 15 friggin' knife slashes on each arm, and read about self-mutilation, and was disturbing because I had like fresh wounds on me, and not that makes me particularly special, but it's like that's just where I was at in my life.
Yeah.
So I just clearly was a very crazy wild card, and not something that they wanted at these shows. And so they would, you know, some of them would politely ask you to not come back, or they would just say, like, you know, your material it's a little much for a show, or, you know. And I was, what did you say?
Did some of them faint? I could see some of them.
Some of them faint. I mean, I just had a really like incendiary, confrontational part to me. I mean, probably it feels like, you know, I've been sent to the school psychiatrist like since I was a kid for writing. You know what I mean? For constantly, just over and over. And so it's just like this. It became this huge chip on my shoulder of, you know, trying to. I just couldn't believe that people would be that upset about writing. I got kicked out of a Christian academy for my writing, and so, you know, I mean, it was just like, just writing was this like explosive thing that I did, and then I went to slams, and slams actually don't kick you out. They just give you, you know, the audience will just give you really low scores and hope you don't come back, and I just would keep coming back.
I'm scared of no 4 or 5.
What did you say?
Like, I'm scared of no 4 or 5. Like, fuck it, I'm a company.
I mean, I literally, the first slam I ever competed at, a judge gave me a 4, and when the host said, I have a 4, the judge stood up and screamed and said, no, it's a what 4? And I've never forgotten that. So, later when I would do well at slams, and people were like, oh, you know, you should well at slams, I'm like, you have to be kidding me. I mean, I was the first 3 to 5 slams I think I went to, the very first ones, I got the lowest score of the night in every single one of them. And the host would just laugh at me. Like, he just could not believe that I would keep coming back. He just thought I was he just thought I was a glutton for punishment. But a lot of it was that, I think a fair amount of it, what's good about Slam, is it was kind of the first time that, like, I was, like, actually cognizant of, you know, the people are listening to you and that they have opinions of their own. And that, I think before that, I was just kind of, like, yelling into this vacuum. And I think for a lot of, I think even, you know, now it's kind of how I feel about, like, certain poets or spoken word performers that are really wary of, like, slams, is some of that is just, like, some of that is, I understand some of the format is intimidating to learn, but some of it is just, like, they actually just don't like the accountability of it. And I think that slams really made me be a lot more conscious of my accountability of, like, you know, if I'm just going to get up there and, like, you know, yell a bunch of madness, it's like, that's fine, and it might feel like a personal exorcism, but it's not necessarily, like, you know, having the impact that it could. And I mean, slam and spoken word in a way just taught me how to sort of, like, craft things in a much different way. You know, it's where you can kind of have a more of an accurate barometer of, like, is what you're trying to say coming across, you know?
Yeah. Wow, that's really good. Really good. Like, really, and then from that you form your troop Tourette's without. No, I'm sorry. It's the trio is. I apologize. It's
the Suicide Kings. The Suicide Kings. Yeah, that was two other pro performers who were kind of felt the same way. Where it was just like when you would go to slams, there'd be a lot of, like, you know, highly poetical, you know, jazzy, beatnik or revolutionary kind of poetry, and, like, we just didn't come from that school, like, at all.
Like the Ginsberg stuff, right? You're talking about, like, Ginsberg kind of poetry.
The what?
Ginsberg, that kind of Ginsberg stuff. Is that what you're talking about, like the beatnik revolutionary?
Well, yeah. I mean, it was like the slams that we were going to, especially in that time in the Bay Area, is that we just naturally gelled together because we would kind of come from sort of a really grimy sort of gutter sensibility that we just didn't feel a lot of other poets and performers kind of shared with us, and so it made this kind of, like, crazy bond over that, because we were, like, reading about, you know, our friends who'd been killed or gone to jail, and, you know, like, tweaker ex-girlfriends who had overdosed, and, you know, and other people are writing about, like, jazz, you know, or something, and, like, we're just, like, not from the same world. And so we definitely just kind of bonded over that, and then started doing a lot of shows together. And then Tourette's was always a big part of that early on. I mean, I started Tourette's literally because I couldn't, I mean, that was a lot of where the title of it came from, is I was just like, I couldn't find places to perform, so I vowed that I would, you know, make a show bigger than all of them, and then that's how I started Tourette's. I was like, I'm going to start a show that the only way I can figure out to make a show that I'm not going to get kicked out of is to be the one putting it on. So that was literally the only way I could think about it.
Yeah, but sometimes that's what you need. You need to start your own stuff. You can't wait for people to accept you, you know? So that's good.
Right, yeah. Right. But, I mean, you know, it pays its own price. So, I mean, it's like, you know, I've been doing Tourette's for almost 15 years, and it's, you know, it's huge. There's like 800, 900 people there in a theater, like, every month, and just mobbed out of its mind. But it's also, you know, sometimes I definitely feel like, God damn it, like, I want to just be a weirdo artist and not have to be, like, putting out emails and shaking hands and slapping babies and trying to get asses in seats, you know, because that does become part of it over time, where it's that you have to kind of constantly one-up yourself, you know, in shows, and it becomes kind of its own dangerous chase of, I mean, I feel like I'm like that constantly. Like, I think some of the best shows I think I've ever put on have actually happened in, like, the last year, you know, and it just kind of creates its own crazy competition with yourself. You're just like, Jesus, how do I top that? I have no idea. And so you just, you know, kind of just in, like, endless race to do that. And, you know, I mean, I obviously book a lot of different types of performers, and sometimes I get jealous because, like, they don't do shows. I mean, like, they don't put on shows. They just, like, do their weird thing in a warehouse someplace for years and years, and then it's like, come out and then do it and then leave, you know, and I'm, like, trying to manifest this whole other phenomenon, I guess. So it's a little crazy.
Yeah, and it's that whole, like, artist meets businessman, you know, thing that you have to do, which sucks. You know, I know a lot of artists, but the business side is really,
yeah, especially in the day of social media and everything. It's just like, oh, how's your this game, and how are you on your Twitter game and your Instagram game, and I'm just like, I'm so, like, misanthropic and, like, antisocial and busy that it's just frustrating. So, like, oh,
you're like, I guess I have to get fun.
Yeah, it was like, okay, I guess I have to get good at Instagram now, and I have to figure out that. And it's like, man, you know.
Oh, yeah, no, sorry, yeah, we struggle with that, even with the talk show we're doing, so.
Yeah, I hate when I have to post to Twitter, you know, because I just don't get it. It was I had to figure out Facebook. I figured out Facebook, and then I had to figure out Twitter. I was like, oh, I just don't want it. And now the new one is Google Plus, and I won't even go there.
What's Google Plus? Is the other one?
I'm afraid of it. It's the one connected to YouTube.
On that, and I really love Twitter. I don't understand it. I mean, it's just like, it's just a list of links. It's like,
right.
And even if you go to someone's page, it's like the most unenthusiastic line of just like them responding to random idiotic people, and I mean, I don't know. I think maybe part of it's just like it's big hype. It's just like you feel like you can actually like contact a celebrity or something, or like you can send a celebrity a message, you know, and they can like retweet it or whatever. I feel like that seems to be one of the larger attractions, I suppose. Because other than that, it's just like the functionality of it just doesn't really fly to me. So whatever. I mean, I'm also, you know, it's definitely points where you just start to feel like an old fool, you know, because I mean, people are like 16 and just blasting on Twitter, so it's like this is more of that currency of like, oh, I'm going to retweet and repost, and here's a link, and blast, and it also just celebrates this sort of culture of narcissism, which is its own deadly precipice, you know, in terms of, and I mean, I'm sure that I would look relatively narcissistic, I suppose, on Facebook or Twitter, because I mostly just post what I'm doing, you know, like, oh, I'm doing this, and this came out, and I'm doing that, and, you know, I'm just not posting pictures of me eating lasagna, or just, you know, whatever, this, like, crazy, like, cult of self that many people maintain, so.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and we talked about that several times on our show, this sort of social networking, narcissism, or, you know, lack of empathy. Or fellow Ginger, Louis C.K., he had a good analysis about how it causes you to, or it doesn't help you develop empathy, is what it is for the young people when they get on these social networking. And all this because you don't see other people's response to what you say, so everybody can be nasty, and it doesn't matter because you don't have to necessarily face the consequences of it. It's kind of like absent, you know? Yeah, so, anyway,
my theory is it's like people honking their horns in their car, like people who are like flipping you off and honking their horns, like, they wouldn't do that if they were not in their car. Because if you're on foot, then you have to deal with the consequence of like, I might come over and just like punch you in the face. You know what I mean? And the internet is just it's the same thing. It's like, people are a lot different when they're like, all right, say it to my face, you know. I mean, when I've had, like, viral stuff online, like, the stuff that people say on YouTube is just, like, you have to learn as any kind of a performer creator, just, like, to completely ignore it and, like, completely, you know, to not read comments about it and just not even go into it because people are just, like, psychotic. They're, like, raving maniacs. I just never felt the burning desire to, like, even type many comments to like a news story I read or whatever. Like I read a story and then I make an opinion for myself and then I go do something else. I'm going to get on and be like, oh my God, you know, here's more of that Obama poison, toxic, killing the country, blah. You know, like the whole new like like kid anthem of just like, you know, someone does anything and they're like, oh God, please just go kill yourself. Just like horribly horrific comments. You just have to remind yourself a lot of times it's just like, it's a bunch of 14-year-olds with keyboards. So it's just like you have to deal with it rationally and be like, okay, this is like, you know, if you give a lot of 14-year-olds like the power of a pen, so like here, mark your name in the world, you know, a lot of them are going to just write idiotic name, you know, stuff and stay out of a lot of this stuff.
Right, exactly. And so, talking about, or getting back to what we mentioned in your intro, you are your great-grandfather's L. Ron Hubbard.
Yes.
And we had, I had seen that you had kind of a paradigm shift from how you thought of him as a child to later when you realized who he was, or that he had founded Scientology. So can you describe that a little bit, your shift, or what you thought of him when you were a kid and how that changed later?
Yeah, I mean, he was, I always had a very distinct memory of him being an inspiration when I was a kid, because he was in every bookstore I went to, that most of my uncles, my grandfather, who was L. Ron Hubbard Jr., had his books, you know, of course, of like sci-fi books, even though that was kind of like, I realized how ironic that was even later, considering the war that they were going through when I was born and kind of coming up. And that, you know, I mean, like I had this whole Mission Earth series, which is like this huge, massive, like 10-volume set that like took up a whole shelf in my little bookshelf in my little kid room, you know, and I thought it was a badass. I mean, it was like I had all of these amazing hardcover books with like, you know, huge aliens holding crazy laser machine guns on them and rockets, and, you know, all of this badass stuff, and it was really inspiring to me. You know, when I was a kid, it was just like a very strong inspiration in terms of like he was a writer, so I could be a writer, you know, and it was just kind of a way of keeping me going. And you know, sometimes when I would sit on my knees and write, I would like look over and be like, oh, you know, I'm writing's in my blood, I can do this. And so it's just like never as much of a question of whether this is something I could do, you know, and whatnot. He was just very inspiring for that. And even my grandfather, L. Ron Hubbard Jr., you know, would make references to him, and my uncles would, you know, talk about how, because when I was really young, I was already like writing constantly. And so they were like, oh, another writer, just like L. Ron, you know. And, but what I didn't realize was the weird weight of that comment. You know, because when I was a kid, it's that was also when literally my grandfather was waging full-on war against his father, who was like in hiding and all of this madness. And so it's just like, you know, we didn't talk about it. No one talked about it. You know, no one said anything about it in terms of that. No one said Scientology to me or anything like that. And it was only because I was raised as a little fanatical Christian kid that reading books about cults, strangely enough, is where I first came across L. Ron as a cult leader. You know, and I'm reading this book, and then it says Scientology, and then I turn the page, and there's my great-granddad, and then photograph of scenes, you know, around the house and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, what is this? What's this Scientology thing? And I'm like asking my mom about it, and she just completely flipped out. Because she thought, when I even brought the word up to her, like, she got flipped out. Like, she thought people had been following me or stalking me. Because to her, it was just like the most dangerous subject that there was, you know. And I mean, also, like, before the internet and everything else, it's just like, most people just they really just did not have a cognizant awareness of how dangerous they really were, you know. So this is it's just something you didn't go into. And my grandfather was dying near the end of it. He was really sick. He had just been like just battling this crazy mafia cult for, you know, the last decade and a half of his life, while his father's in hiding. They're both at war, and they got, you know, private investigators following him everywhere. He's flying in and out to court cases, so it was not something that they really wanted to talk about. And And then my little crazy ass comes to like, Elrod's my hero, and then I find out that I'm like, what is this Scientology thing? Like, he made a religion? I don't understand. And my mom was like, well, it's not a real religion, and she just kind of just assessed it to me and explained it to me almost just like, well, he wrote a lot of good books, and then he just kind of went his own way, and just kind of went down a dark path. And she kept it very simplistic. And I was the oldest of all my cousins, and I was a redhead. Me and my brother were the two redheads that came out of the grandkids, and both clearly showed Elron's characteristics at a young age. Like, we're both just insane motor mouths and really moody and temperamental and just kind of wild and insane. And we definitely have maintained that over the years. But to me, it was like it was a really, I think that some people like misunderstand that. Like, when they hear me talk about Elron, like, they just think I'm, like, it's just some random trivia. But I mean, to me, it was like a very, very, like, tangible part of my childhood of, like, this guy's, as an inspiring force, and then learning who he was indirectly, and then starting to ask the questions that a lot of my aunts and uncles, like, were desperately trying to avoid. I was the first kid who was like, so what is this Scientology thing? What do they believe? Why isn't he around anymore? Like, can I talk to him? Can I send him a letter? Like, can I send him my stories? Can he talk to me? And just, like, they would get really quiet and just, like, there was a lot of, like, when you're older kind of thing. And then when I got older, I started, asking the really hard questions. And even now, they're like, some of them are absolutely terrified of the fact that I come out, so public and just swing on it because...
there's a quote, don't believe everything you read, but believe everything you say. Was your dad or your grandfather still do that?
That was my grandfather, So
how well has that helped you maintain truth and integrity in your life? That's a great thing, by the way. I love that.
I think that by being a performer and kind of a vaudevillian, circus showman guy, which is a lot of what I do. I mean, like, I'm in a clown troupe. I host a lot of circuit shows. I host a lot of crazy events, pretty often. And, I've hosted game shows that we've created and all that. And a lot of it is, I feel like a lot of the mechanics of being a showman and a cult leader are really the same. A lot of them are the same sort of tropes. A lot of what Elron did is that he wrote something and then he had to sell you on it. He had to convince you on it. A lot of that, how he made his money in the early days, was going on doing, like, hour-long lectures, and he gets up there in his nice suit, and, he's just freestyling for, like, an hour and just, like, making people laugh and trying to charm their socks off and get paid. So I think a lot of it is me kind of identifying that very early on in terms of, like, understanding what that kind of charisma is and that sort of power of manipulation, and kind of really consciously try to be as dedicated to the ugly truth as possible, probably because I see the same mechanic. Anyone who's a good performer is really also just a good liar, that's even something that I teach in performance is writing more stuff to do with kids is, one of the main lessons I have is, there's a reason why the word con is in confidence. Is that, like, the whole thing is it's always a hustle. Anytime you get up there and you're doing a play or a movie, it's all a lie. It's a constructed artifice. You get up and you're like, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? Wow, we all really had a good time tonight. That whole energy is like, I might be going through a breakup through myself and want to friggin' eat an Uzi, but it's like, the audience doesn't need to know that. I need to get up and fake it. I need to get up and be a conduit to people's apology. And what does Tom Cruise say? I'm like, who cares what Tom Cruise thinks? Like, he's an actor. So what? Like, yes, he's rich. You've seen him in movies. So what? That does not mean he's actually, like, a historic, legendary human being himself. Like, if you're an actor, you're just a professional liar. You're really good at it. That's cool. I do movies. I've done performance myself. I get it. But it's like it doesn't make you like something special. Like, people like confuse the roles with like the vessel. And I think that I try to have a commitment to understanding that hustle and that kind of manipulative apparatus, but use it for something that's more just entertaining. Was less about like let me burrow my way into your brain and then figure out how to puppeteer it so I can make more cash and, you know, pay my rent off messing your mind up, you know. It's different. I mean, Elron could have been an amazing, just like, circus showman. You know, I think that if I met Elron at this point in day and age, I think that we would get each other very quickly. And he would be very similar to a lot of the other circus ringleaders I know. And it's the same thing. He would come in and have his, like, big old grin and a whole bunch of crazy, wacky stories that probably never happened. And, you know, his bills by being a parasite. And that's something completely different than what I should ever do.
And so when you started to look into what Scientology was, like, what were some of the things that sort of stood out to you as, like, oh, this is wrong, these are atrocities, this shouldn't be done to people kind of thing? And then when later you decided to speak out about it, what made you decide to do that?
Well, there's a lot of factors. I mean, I think that some people, it's changed slightly, but I think mostly just slightly. There's a lot of people, they don't really know that much about Scientology, which is exactly how Scientology wants it. That for decades, people didn't understand anything about it. It was very mysterious, just sort of murky. It was just like, oh, is Dianetics something? I don't know. You know, all the stuff about aliens and Xeno and all that, nobody knew any of that. None of that was public. And that was actually some of the most dangerously guarded secrets that were internal secrets to the cult possible. I mean, these are like very, very top secret stuff. And, I mean, totally insane, crazy stuff, but I mean, top secret. And a lot of it is, and what my grandfather fought for a lot, is the true history of the LRM was completely buried and kept in the dark, even, you know, to his own followers. And the kind of crazy sort of like criminal enterprise that Scientology became, this sort of like just wild, insane, you know, this like whole huge empire of like trying to take over countries and running around with their own secret police and like breaking into governments and like just destroying their opponents and like just with the craziest, most outlandish stuff possible. But the more you know about it, you almost can't even believe that they're still allowed to operate like within this country. In other countries, they don't recognize it as a religion at all. You know, it's even happening in what is it, Denmark, I think. And now I'm sorry, Belgium. Is that they don't recognize it as a religion. They recognize it as a con game. They recognize it like they're like, oh, we're a religion. Like, no, you're not. No, you're not. You're totally like you're a financial scam and a hustle. We're trying to figure out if we can prosecute you for that, and what the angles are on that. But like, we're certainly not going to respect you as a religion because you're not. And you know, in America, that was
Germany too, right? Aren't they not allowed?
Yeah, in Germany as well. Yeah, they don't recognize it as a religion. They're like, you know, and of course they'll fly out Tom Cruise and whatever and be like, oh, how dare you, you know, renounce my beliefs and dare you try to control my spiritual people? And, you know, that's the whole thing. It's not a religion. It was never designed to be a religion. They designed it as a science. I mean, literally, Dianetics is called the modern science of the new mind. It was supposed to be a science. But fortunately, there are two dangerous factors of that. Is that science is supposed to have case studies and actual evidence, which you did not have. And two, that if it's a science, that means that anybody can learn it and then replicate the same process for the same effects, right? Which also means that you don't need L. Ron Hubbard. So that was what started to happen, and he went bankrupt because of that. Because he's like, oh, here's Dianetics. I bet he made a whole bucket loads of cash, and then, you know, people just started to do it on their own, and he wasn't getting money for that, and he was like lost control of it. Really just went like rich and then bankrupt almost pretty much within like 5 years or less. And then he came up with Scientology, and very quickly made that into a religion because then you could stand behind the shield of like, oh, how dare you not let, you disrespect my religious beliefs, and, I mean, that's her favorite accusation in the world. It's like, y'all are fascists, you can't believe in it. Anyways, my larger point is you're asking about, like, what was that kind of shift in, like, where, to start talking about it, is that, like, some of it seems wacky and funny to some people. It still happens. It happens all the time, especially these days. I'll be at a burlesque show or something, and someone's like, hey, here's my friend. Hey, tell me who your great-grandfather is. I'm like, unheard. And they're like, what? What are you talking about? They like, and they want to start asking me about Tom Cruise or South Park or, whatever. And it seems like fun, wacky trivia. Like, isn't that crazy? This guy's related to a cult leader, and here he is. When you meet people who have literally had friends kill themselves and jump out of a window because your great-grandfather wrote something that completely brainwashed them, and they haven't talked to their wife, they can't talk to their kids anymore. They've lost 30 years of their life. They're, locked in these kind of crazy prisons that Scientology created. They're like 50 years old, and this is all they've known since they were like 19. You know what I mean? Is this crazy, charismatic con man just like worming his way into their brain, and just the utter devastation that it wrecks on these families and these lives. Well, it's like it ain't funny anymore. It's not cute. It's not like, oh, isn't that funny? And it's Tom Cruise, and let's talk about Katie Holmes, and like, you're like, no, this is an incredibly organized, highly efficient, totally terrifying criminal organization that masquerades as a religion. The only reason why it's not outlawed in America is because more people don't know anything about it. That's it. That's really it. There's no other, from what I understand, the Mormons have never had their own secret police. You know what I mean? They've never had counterintelligence units. You know what I mean? And Scientology does. They have a whole wing on that. The Operation of Special Affairs. Just straight up run game on you like the CIA would. And just completely try to destroy any opponent that comes against them. And it was all apparatus. It all came out of this one guy. So, he went from being a childhood hero to being an incredibly cautionary tale, just like unchecked power and unchecked like just greed and like carnivorous, insane ego. And the more that I know about him, and the more that I've talked to people who knew him personally, especially near the end, and all that. I mean, that he was just like, in a way, when I was younger, like I really respected just like the fact that he could smash his will into the world, and he was just able to like manifest all of this crazy vision. But over time, I was like, but at what cost? He could have just stayed a writer. He could have done a lot of things. But instead, his whole hustle was on being a predator.
I want to ask, are there any good things about Scientology? Because I think for cults to work, there has to be something that people resonate with, that some element of truth that draws people in.
Sure. Absolutely. No, go ahead.
Read that, and then I was just going to say, is it possible that people can take some elements of Scientology and use what works for them and discard the others, or they have to become part of the whole?
No. Yeah, that actually is not allowed. Specifically, but actually they have a whole apparatus that deals with that. They call it squirreling. When you take the tech, as they call it, and try to piecemeal them earlier. He was just like, there's no way this is going to happen again. And so it was really built into the DNA of it, that you absolutely cannot add, change, edit anything that Elon wrote, which is the problem that they're dealing with now, is that like it's literally woven into the fabric of it, of like you can't add new levels to it. It's like this is it. It begins, starts, and ends with Elon. But in terms of like what works about it, I mean, Scientology in of itself is basically just like a crazy hodgepodge of really nothing. Ultimately, that it's a really efficient form of brainwashing yourself that uses elements of hypnosis, passion, combined with a whole sort of security apparatus and kind of paranoid worldview. And anything that people get out of it, they could probably get just from simply seeing a therapist or, I don't know, reading The Secret or Oprah's latest book of the month. And that is specifically woven into the fabric of it that you can't take any element that works from it and apply it in a different way, because L. Ron was incredibly wary of that and was, just absolutely smashed on anybody that tried to do that. Which is the thing, is that it's not trying to be a beneficial thing for humanity. That people constantly try to figure out, like, well, what is it about that works from it and stuff like that? And the deal of it is, a lot of it is ultimately a sham. I mean, he created a state where basically you go into his like trances and are able to fabricate past lives and freestyle them out of the thin air. And also you talk about traumatic memories, and you talk about them until they no longer have the same kind of emotional charge for you. And that's a lot of what its bread and butter is about. However, the evil side of that is that on talking about traumatic events, where like they basically take your confessions and then own them, and then they put them in a filing cabinet, and like there's no doctor-client type privilege that doesn't exist in this world. So it's like if you try to leave, they'll use your confessions against you, so on and so forth. So, I mean, ultimately, there's like, there's elements of Satanism that work for people. You know what I mean? There's elements of anything anybody wants to believe in. There's elements because it gives your life purpose. There's usually a sense of ritual. There's a sense that somebody knows what they're doing, and that there's a larger purpose to it all. But do I recommend anybody even just like, hey, take a couple courses and check it out? No, because the ultimate end game is absolutely predatory. I mean, its whole design is basically like put in a finger and you're going to lose a fist. It's basically how it's set up.
Speaking of, you mentioned Satanism. I know there are two different religions, but has there been any ties between like the Illuminati, Scientology, Satanism, and satanic cult worship, all that stuff? Any of that stuff?
Not like straight on Satan, but you could argue that. I mean, there's definitely a lot of. One of the true roots of Scientology is just kind of like crazy black occultic magic stuff, which sounds utterly preposterous, but that's what it was by definition. That he was involved with Robert Parks. L. Ron was very shortly before he started Scientology and Dianetics, was involved in basically like an occultic sex magic group with Robert Parsons, who was the biggest American benefactor of Aleister Crowley, and they do all kinds of crazy sex magic rites and try to incarnate different, demonic entities in the whore of Babylon and moon children, and this is all documented. It sounds utterly insane, but it's absolutely did happen. And, I've seen the writings of L. Ron from this period, and I've also I have the unpublished memoir of my grandfather when he talks about when him and his father were coming on, and that they were, this is a very strong component of it in its very early days. In particular, it was like that you're trying to tap into these like unchecked powers, and you're trying to control people, and that there's no conscience, that it's all about your will, and it's just kind of like almost like a very like sociopathic worldview. Also in trying to invoke unlocking different powers and opening doors in people's minds, but ultimately having control over them. And that was one of the darkest roots of Scientology itself, and Dianetics, that L. Ron never wanted to talk about in public because they knew how dangerous and incendiary that sounded. But a lot of that is coming out even more and more. And I think more of it is just like, outside of magic and all of the occultic whatever, it's really about the mechanics of it. It's about trance-like states. It's about trying to crack people's psyches. It's about having this sociopathic sense of glee in trying to puppeteer people's minds. That is the most important out of it. And that certainly was like an intoxicating thing to Elron, and just started to become a challenge, I think.
When you realized that you had this lineage and you were a part of it, was there any shame personally attached to that? Did you ever feel embarrassed or?
No. I mean, in some ways it started to make some of my own personality make a little more sense to me, because I realized that there was something really strangely off about me and my brother, and just from an early age, and in a sense it was just okay, that makes more sense, that we have this strange kind of extra quality to us that just makes us so aberrant and bizarre when we were young, and some it was early on a sense of it's like being related to a crazy bank robber or a pirate, or something like that. And I mean, that's actually what I'm, even the longer lineage is of, some of my uncles have gone back even further, and yeah, a lot of us are descendants of straight pirates. Some of that, some of that same quality of being mouth grifters, in a way of if you're pale ginger, it's you're not going to win in the sunshine, so you better be able to talk your way, hustle your money in the dark or something, or I don't know what it is. And so, no, it wasn't a lot of shame so much, is that, but it also cracks me up when people think I'm making it up or something, or I'm trying to exploit it for a quick buck. Scientology has it's never gotten me a dime to talk about Elron. At all. I mean, it's just a ridiculous, it's never gotten me laid, that's for damn sure. If there's not a girl on the planet who's just oh, you're related to Elron Hubbard? What? Ooh, hot, you know what I mean? It's never happened. They're who's that? Isn't he some weirdo that believes in aliens? And, I mean, it's just not it's not a hot, attractive thing. So, no, I mean, a lot of it wasn't shame. I feel that, to me, it was a sense of really owning what that meant in terms of, how does that work and infuse what I do as a performer and a writer, and what I'm trying to leave behind on the planet, and also just a sense of obligation. And one of the reasons why I do so many interviews about it, as exhausting as it can be to just constantly answer a lot of the same questions about Elron and so forth, is that I feel in a way that if I'm the last person in my family that's going to talk about it, is that I sort of owe it to, the destruction that he has waged. I mean, because the fact is, he's dead. He got away with all of it. You know what I mean? He died in hiding. He died rich. He died a hunted man, but he still got away with it. I say that in the performance piece of, before a jail cell or a courtroom could ever make him real again, is that he didn't go to jail. He got away with all of it. But he's dead. He's gone, and, he left this empire that's still fighting to, maintain his whole facade, this whole charade that he has fought so hard for his entire life. And I'm sure it delights him to no end that he has people that are still, manufacturing the same myths about him, oh, he was a world explorer, and he was a blood brother to Indians, and a submarine commander, and a dogfight pilot, and one of the greatest men of the century, and okay, great. He's dead, though. It's just you know what I mean? So right now, it's just a whole money hustle, and they got nowhere else to go with it. So to me, it's just being honest on the fact of who he really was as a flesh and blood man, and who he actually was as a family member. I mean, because I feel my grandfather, in of itself, is that their story is kind of a microcosm of Scientology itself. I mean, they were both Scientologists. They're both named L. Ron Hubbard, and they basically both got devoured alive by the same creation, and it just consumed every inch of their lives, and at the same time, I mean, they're both gone, at this point, and now you just have this kind of evil machine that just keeps trying to use people's brains for for food. And, someone's got to say something about it. And I mean, I don't think my daughter wants to be the next one in hand of the baton, and it was just my crazy ass reading his books when I was a kid that really, is a lot. I mean, my brother's, he's L. Ron Hubbard's great-grandson, and he doesn't want to talk about it. He gives to me, and people like, reviewers and reporters would be like, oh, can we talk to your brother? And he's like, nah, man, what's your thing?
Right.
He doesn't care. He doesn't want to go into all that. Most people are just like, that's just messy. But I feel a very personal kind of obligation that, also that's kind of what L. Ron taught me at a certain early age. It's just like, the world's a stage, so get up there and say it. And I just choose to try to say what I can that's true. So.
And since you mentioned that they are that it is a dangerous organization, and they are kind of operate like a mini CIA in some ways. You think you touched on it a little bit. This Operation Snow White, where they went in and were trying to steal, infiltrate the government and steal documents to hide their tracks, or is that what they were doing? They were trying to
totally. Well, they did infiltrate. It's largely viewed as the worst domestic form of basically counter surveillance in the last century. They broke into literally every government branch. They're in the IRS, they're in the State Department and the FBI. They had secret double agents of Scientology agents, breaking into government offices and destroying documents and, just terrorizing people. And a ton of them went to jail for it. L. Ron Hubbard's wife went to jail for it. And that's the thing, is a lot of Americans don't even know that. If you were to say, hey, what's one of the worst, government invasive, basically what was kind of the craziest, terrorist surveillance, action of the last century, who perpetuated it? They'd be like, I don't know, Branch Davidians, or, I don't know, they would think it's Al Qaeda, and it's no, Scientology. Scientology was just a running rogue, in the 70s, and, even the movie The Master or whatever, they don't even go near that era. My favorite era of Scientology is the 70s, because it was just out of control. L. Ron was basically just damn, what else can I get away with? You know what I mean? It's just sweet, I'm gonna try to take over countries. He's literally just running around with his own private navy and you know what I mean? Just creating empires left and right, and governments are trying to nail his ass to the wall, and he just jumps on a boat and floats away and then goes starts havoc somewhere else, and it's kind of private, double agents running all over the globe. It's totally insane. It's stuff you can just barely even believe, And that's the thing too, is that L. Ron to me is, outside being my great grandfather, it's incredibly fascinating guy. He's one of the craziest con men of the last century. So I happen to have a certain amount of morbid fascination with what this guy got away with. It's pretty impressive.
He had a lot of chutzpah, had a lot of balls. You have to admit that.
Yeah, that's always definitely been an inspiring, thing to me constantly. And that is the absurd truth, is that there are days when I get real low and I'm just I don't know what I'm doing with myself and things like that. And I'm well, great grandfather definitely proves you can pretty much do anything if you put your mind to it. So I'm I don't know, how am I going to make a feature film happen? How am I going to be able to get this show off the ground or whatever? It's well, clearly if you have a will, there is many ways. There's all kinds of ways to do what you want. The difference is that how you achieve those aims. And I think that he was very nakedly, if you know the real man, was very nakedly open about that it is all about it's all about the end result. It's that the means don't matter, and it doesn't matter who you crush underfoot. And he was always a storyteller, but he ended up writing his own, and writing himself to be his own heroic character to cover for who he actually was.
If you can charge Scientology, well, the original question I wrote was if you can charge Scientology with a crime, what will it be? But there are conversations I noticed that there are many crimes that you can charge Scientology.
Charge them with a crime is
well, what would they be? I haven't looked at my own, but
I mean the one that should be the most basic is fraud. That's probably the most benign, but I mean that's the one that you could probably absolutely nail them on over and over. Is absolute fraud. Most religions don't guarantee you anything, right? Like I grew up Christian, and they're like, all right, when you die, 100% we're right, right? I have a 100% guarantee that we're correct. The moment you're dead, then we'll figure out if I'm right or not. But that's it. There's no other, like, the whole point of it is that you don't get any evidence until you're dead, right? A very convenient business deal. Scientology is offering you different powers and superpowers for you to achieve in this lifetime. And the fact that as you move up, crazy internet video game that you're paying thousands of dollars for to achieve your way to like a different higher level of salvation. Well, then ultimately it actually just sputters out. I mean, they keep selling it to you like, oh man, when you get to the next level, it's going to be amazing. When you get to the next level, it's going to be amazing. And then as you move on and forward through it, it becomes more and more hollow and deranged and empty because Elon was just making it up. It becomes really clear as you get through it of how vivid and how tangible that is. Where it's like, when you meet ex-Scientologists who've like been through the whole process, and it's like, that moment of horror where they start to like really kind of tangibly through all of the brainwashing have this kind of slow growing thought of like, good God, this guy is he's just making this up. This is all just like a horrible lie that this guy's like, oh yeah, and then this is what happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then you're like, wait a minute, like you're just crazy. You're just making all this up. And they're like, yeah, I'm crazy. And I mean it's fraud. It's not a religion. And people are, oh, you've got to respect these normal beliefs. So like, no, you don't respect Satanists. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? Like, people don't respect David Koresh followers. It's like, why don't I respect Scientology? Hell no. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's literally every word of it came out of the mouth of one man who's conclusively, absolutely proven in several courts across the world to be a compulsive, maniacal liar. Pretty much everything that you take with it is absolutely suspect. So that's how I feel about it. I mean, I would, many people, they all wonder, like, what is going to happen to Scientology? Because the thing is, the information is out there. The internet is killing them because it's all of their secrets and their secret, internal levels they're trying to like hustle you on are all on the internet. You don't have to pay thousands of dollars. You can just do like new converts to try to sell to this kind of secret mystery cult. However, they have billions of dollars, so it's like, how do you? What's going to happen? I have no idea.
Well,
I have no idea.
Well, I was going to ask you, do you think that these are the last days of Scientology? You kind of answered that, right? Do you think that they will completely pan out altogether?
It's hard. I think they're going to mutate. I think they have to mutate. I don't know. They have too much money and too much property to just go away, like in a crumbling mess. Right? This is not going to happen. They just have too much promotional muscle, and just they're still swinging. I mean, they got money for days. If they want to send lawyers after you, or private investigators after you, or worse. I mean, like, they have the money for it. But the money is not an issue. The problem is that they don't have the same momentum in terms of groundswell and convincing folks. But I mean, they're doing crazy stuff. They're making alliances with the Nation of Islam. I'm not making this up. I'm not making this up. I know how insane that sounds. They literally giving millions of dollars to the Nation of Islam on these crazy backroom deals to try to get the Nation of Islam to like recruit for them and like hustle like new communities to become Scientologists. I met a guy in Clearwater who was like literally come from the Nation of Islam and had left the Nation of Islam because of stuff like this. I see like video of Louis Farrakhan like holding a copy of Dianetics and being like, the Truth Brothers in here. Stuff like that. Like, I just couldn't even believe it. I was like, good God, like, talk about strange bedfellows there, like, you know, it's just like cold Scientology, Nation of Islam, you know, not exactly.
You think they're getting desperate?
Yeah, not exactly dance partners that you normally think of. So, you know, I mean, I think that they are absolutely trying to figure out what is this next angle, what's the next thing that they can do, and I don't know what that is. I mean, I don't think anybody does. The last 10 years have been unheralded. You know what I mean? Like, 15 years ago, I would not be able to have this conversation with you without Scientologists literally being on my door, like, the next day. I mean, that's literally what had happened before. I mean, they acted exactly like everything I had heard about when I was a kid. Like, I couldn't believe how textbook it was. I was like, oh, you want to talk about it? Bam, I'm like right at your house, on your door. You got people following you. Your phones are tapped. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you were completely being hunted immediately. And these days, it's just like they're just getting blasted on all over. And probably because, you know, the internet makes people able to unify. Only because people are just like, what is this? They're like, how long do y'all get to be bullies? How long do you get to just like threaten and terrify people into silence before it gets shut down? You know? So I don't know. I really don't. They're just trying to hang in there long enough. You know, the Mormons had someone up for president last election, so it's like, you never know, man. I mean, Mormons had a pretty crazy, intense history themselves, and Elon Hunt took to the streets and killed, like, their founder, and they're still around, you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know.
Wow, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out there, because I know, especially with, I had a roommate that was an ex-Scientologist, and she would tell me when her mother tried to take her and her brother out, how they would, like, follow them and harass them and, like, torture them and all this stuff. And now I'm seeing all these videos about people that were in Scientology basically saying the same thing she was. So, I mean, I know it's true, but it's just going to be interesting now. And I know that, like you said, that this is actually unprecedented, because, you know, even like the media, you know, when media talks about Scientology, they always have to read a quote from the church, and it seems so contrived and like robotic. You know, it's creepy.
Right.
And you know that they're just saying it to cover their ass because they're scared that they're gonna, you know, they're highly litigious, so you know they're trying, they don't want to get sued, or they don't want to get, like, harassed. You know, it's interesting, but I see people having more freedom to talk about it now, and I think that maybe people are becoming more conscious and more aware. But the sad truth is as long as there's people that are, I don't know, you want to call them lost souls or have some void that needs to be filled, I think there's always going to be cults that are going to, you know, seek that out and try and suck people in, whether it's Scientology or anything else. So,
right.
Anyway, Jamie, please remind us where you can find your info, your websites, anything else you would like to promote, or.
You can go to jamiedewolf.com. I actually am a much more fascinating person than just someone who talks about Scientology. But I do lots of movies and shows and comedy and crazy vaudeville things, and occasionally rip my pants off and clown makeup and do all kinds of wacky things. So to me it's hilarious because I have this whole other life as a crazy vaudevillian performer, and it's like I also, you know, do this, happen to stick my finger in the face of a very terrifying cult conglomerate. So, yeah, you can go to jamiedewolf.com.
Okay, cool. Yeah, April and I checked some of the stuff out, actually, some of your performers and your performances as well, so they're really entertaining. I love slam poetry. I love all that stuff, so it was really good. If I'm in Oakland, I'm going to try and come out to see you one of these days, see your show.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye. DeWolf.
Every
Every family has their black sheep. On my mother's side, our black sheep was a shepherd who enslaved his own flock. The king of the Khans, a man who made himself a messiah even though he never called himself a god. Even tonight, his words are written in steel and titanium capsules in a nuclear-reinforced bunker miles underground, so if our whole species goes extinct, his words will still survive. He was a subject we never talked about at the kids' table at family reunions, but he was my great-grandfather, L. Ron Hubbard. Lafayette's Ron Hubbard. He was born a storyteller, a science fiction writer, a golden-tongued grifter who could write a book in any genre while the publisher waited downstairs in the hotel lobby. Just another name on dime store pulp mags, paid only a penny a page until 1949 when he said, "You want to know how you really get rich? You start a religion." A year later, he kept to his word, wrote Dianetics, transforming science fiction into fact, until you could pay to flatline your mind for a fee. Overnight, he went from pennies to a profit, until the world demanded to see his evidence. But L. Ron knew if you don't have facts, all you need is faith. So he turned his science into a religion, and Scientology was born. A few years later, his son arrived, a baby who had survived an early abortion attempt, born premature at 2 pounds, 2 ounces, abandoned by his father as he sought fame and fortune. Now he emerged to take his parts of the new family business. He was my grandfather, L. Ron Hubbard Jr. Carrying his father's name and his red hair, Jr. became his right-hand man and was a devout disciple and a believer, helping him to construct the church, and it took him years to realize he was only another accomplice. Trained in the arts of electrified hypnotism, blackmail, and beat downs, he learned to hide his crimes behind his charisma. And it took him a decade to see the holes behind the holy, the man behind the myth, his father. Stuffing thousands of dollars in a shoebox he kept secret underneath the bed, his father. Burning incriminating documents before dawn, his father. Escaping criminal charges as he ran from state to state as Junior watched his family and friends' brains washed, banks broken. Sickened by what he had seen behind the curtain, in 1959, Junior left. But his father always understood retribution better than redemption, and he stalked his son with wiretaps, break-ins, and death threats. My grandfather coming home to photographs of his children in his mailbox, playing on playgrounds, alone and unguarded, to remind him the eye of the pyramid never blinks. While every one of my aunts and uncles were taught how to use a gun, the son forced to live like his dad, permanently on the run until he changed his last name from Hubbard to DeWolf. A lie to protect him from ever having to tell the truth. When your father has created a religion in your lifetime, there's no sun big enough to ever escape his shadow. But there's a thin line between prophecy and psychosis, and the barefaced Messiah ran from countries and criminal charges, an international outlaw on a ship, escaping extradition, his sanity slipping as he started confusing his past from his fiction, until one day he vanished before a courtroom or a jail cell could ever make him real again. Junior, now buried under debt, tried to flush his father out of hiding to write him a check, so he litigated the Holy Ghost to prove he still had flesh. The son took his war public to scrape the idol's gold down to rust. Junior, now a dying diabetic with an amputated foot, buried and battered from a decade of lawsuits against the man who carried his same name, until the day his dad died in hiding, cremated the next morning, leaving only a legacy of ashes. The church gave the son one final offer: arrest your tongue, swallow the truth for one final check, or you and your next of kin will face a lifetime of threats. So we signed away his silence and took his secrets and 2 heart attacks to his grave. Another victim the church stopped pretending to save. On Thanksgiving, in a house a self-made God paid for, his great-grandchildren never said his name. He was the one God we never gave grace to. One day my grandfather led me to a bookshelf and showed me volumes of his father's works. And he said, "Your mom says you want to be a writer. Well, don't believe everything you read, but believe everything you say." I never met the man who gave me my red hair, the manic depression still twisted in the strains of my DNA, and the first time I saw a psychiatrist when he asked me if mental illness runs in my family. All I could say was yes. Yes, it does. When I told him my great-grandfather was a cult leader that enslaved the minds of millions, he accused me of having delusions of grandeur. What can I say? It runs in my veins. I've been in secret to L. Ron Hubbard Hollywood life exhibits, where his latest victim leads me on a tour of a life he never led, my family written out of existence. And this disciple will never know the legacy of lies that I still carry in my last name. DeWolf, a cover story to protect us from my great-grandfather's true children, the army of empty, who greet me in train stations with an e-meter and a personality test, and they ask me if I've ever heard of L. Ron Hubbard. And I want to ask them, which one? The Son or the Father? The God or the man?
Hey there, welcome back. Thanks for listening to us. Thanks for staying with us on Truth or Talk here. So, Haverstein, we just interviewed Jamie DeWolf. Very cool.
Yeah, he's really great personality. You know, it's funny, because I did have a question about South Park on my list, and when he was talking about South Park, I, crossed it out. She was like, yeah, people like to ask me about South Park, and I didn't really have any Tom Cruise questions. Maybe I had one, because I was going to ask, because I heard him in another interview say that he didn't think that Tom Cruise can leave Scientology even if he wanted to, and I wanted him to elaborate more on why he thought that, but I think he answered it in his question, in his when he was talking, because he was talking about how pervasive and how just powerful they are, basically.
Right.
So I can see, even so basically they're more powerful than Tom Cruise, They'd probably kill him if he was like, I'm gonna leave. He'd have to write a book or do a public appearance before they knew about it, in order for him to come out and talk about it. But I think that he's so guarded, he's so controlled that I don't know if he would be able to do that.
Well, they probably have stuff on him. I mean, Jamie DeWolf said that they take your secrets, so they know everything about you. So you come in and they say, well, we need full disclosure and everything, otherwise we can't help you. So we need you to be completely honest. Give us everything that you. And then, so if they know, like a lot of people, I don't know if this is true. I don't know why I don't fully believe it, but is that he's gay? I mean, I guess that
I totally believe it.
Yeah, I just don't feel that there's enough evidence, but.
Well, only thing that I've just heard people in Hollywood, so many people through the years that have said that about them. And the thing is, they say that about all the hot guys, all the stars anyway. So a lot of times when people say that, I just I just discard it. But I was like, they say that about all the guys, so that's not a big deal. But I just, for him, for so long, for so many years, and then the marriages that he's been in just seem so fake. He's a hot guy. He's fine. He's 50. He's still fine. I'm like, damn, Tom Cruise, you are fine. Maybe you are an alien. I don't know. But I'm just kidding. But he's he's charismatic. He's a good actor. He's smart. I don't think he's stupid at all. He's very intelligent. I was really impressed when he was going head to head with Matt Lauer. Yeah. I was like, go Tom. But I just think that. So why can't he find a woman? Why do his marriages have to be fake? I've heard from other people in Hollywood too that they had auditions for his wedding, for his when he married Katie Holmes, they actually had actresses to audition to be his wife. They put out a mail, they wanted somebody to marry him. Well, why does he need somebody? You know what I mean? If he's straight, why does he need, like, I would marry fuck. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see, like, he's a catch.
I know, right? It's true.
I need a fake wife. It's just really fishy.
That's a good point.
It's just very fishy to me. Which I wouldn't even care if he's gay. It's not like I have a chance in hell on him anyway. It's not he knows I'm alive. So personally, I don't. But I know, our society unfortunately still is very homophobic, and I think if that got out, it would just ruin his career.
Yeah. Especially because of the kind of character he plays, and he's such a sex symbol. He's been a sex symbol for, I mean, like you said, he's in his 50s and he looks great. He's still really hot, and he's as hot as ever. It's like he ages, but he doesn't lose his hotness. Like his hot look stays the same, and you're like, damn, Tom, how do you do it? And he doesn't look terribly like worked on. He doesn't look like he's had a lot. I mean, if he has had plastic surgery, it's been pretty minimal because I think he just lives a healthy lifestyle and he takes care of himself, and so it shows. And he seems like a really genuinely nice guy, and he's a good actor, and I've enjoyed him in many films. But if he came out as gay, it could lower his status, if not ruin his career. I mean, at this point in his career, I don't know. It's like he's such a big star that it seems like it would be hard to completely eliminate Tom Cruise. But at the same time,
ego boost though too. People like that too are controlled by their ego. I have to say he probably has. Doesn't mean he's a bad person, but I'm sure he has a huge ego. So for him, it would be damaging to his ego for him to admit that he's gay. And I don't know, people trip over stuff like that, and I know, a lot of male celebrities that have come out, they don't work the same way. Maybe Neil Patrick Harris, but there's the only one I can really think of. But what was the other fine dude that came out? Oh, he said Wentworth Miller. He came out, said he was gay. It's funny, before he came out, I've heard from a lot of people that he was. So it's like the same thing, too. A lot of people, because, like, when somebody's hot and famous, you're like, oh, he's gay. And then maybe you just hear it a few times in a few months, and then afterwards, people don't really say that. But then you keep hearing it over and over again, you just kind of start to wonder if there's any truth to that. And from my experience of looking at celebrities and hearing that they've been gay, every time I've heard through the years that they've been gay, they eventually come out and say that they're gay. So I mean, that's why I haven't seen Tom Cruise with anybody. This is where I'm drawing my conclusion that this is probably, and that's probably what they have on him. Same thing with John Travolta. But even though John Travolta, and I really believe he's gay, but they had that picture of him kissing somebody. Did you see that? Like not like on the cheek, not like, on the forehead, but in the mouth, with the mouth closed. He was kissing another guy. He was getting off a plane. He had his arm. He was kissing another guy.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, they spun it. They said, oh, he's just playing around. And then you had those other, I think they were like massage people that came out, and they were saying that he solicited them for sex, and they were boys. So... There's been a few people that come out and talk about John Travolta. That's where I do kind of believe that one. But that's where with the
Tom Cruise one, I mean, they're covering it well.
Yeah.
Because even though, like you're saying, there are some very suspicious elements, there's no one that I'm aware of that's actually come straight out and say, I'm Tom Cruise's lover. I've had did-it, you know, or at least not somebody who's credible, you know, enough to where anyone believes them. But I don't know. I mean, you get into the Church of Scientology, how much money has he given, how many people have joined as a result of his being a part of it.
And you think about how desperate they are to keep their status. You know, I'm sure they would show people if they need to. I wouldn't be surprised.
Well,
you know,
I mean,
either pay off people or sue them or threaten them or blackmail the people that, you know, want to come out or kill them. They'll do anything. They'll do anything. You know, and I asked Jamie, you know, jokingly, was like, what would you charge them with? And he was like, the most easiest one would probably be fraud. But, you know, my list goes on from, like, anything from kidnapping to child labor, to slavery, slander, blackmail, theft, terrorism, and possibly even murder, you know. And it's really interesting, too, that the president's wife, David Miscavige, has been missing for a few years now, and that's why Leah Remy left, because she inquired about it, and they just, you know, they treated her appallingly, so... She filed a missing persons report, and they haven't. And it's funny, the police came back saying, oh, she's fine, but nobody's seen her. Oh, but the police said he's fine, so what, did they pay off the police? Did they threaten the police? What's going on? They have a lot of money, and we know from the work that we do and the people that we talk with, when you have a lot of money, no matter who you are, the sky's the limit. Anything's possible, so.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly, and that's where, you know, these guys are very well connected and they have a lot of dough, and it's a little scary. Like, we didn't get a chance to ask him, but I was kind of curious as to Jamie ever had any kind of threats or anything like that, because I find it a little scary that he talks about it so openly, but I guess he's an insider that's an outsider. Like, his inside perspective is that he was related to this person, he was born into it, but he actually never was a part of the church himself. So maybe that's where he is a little bit, he's able to get away with this a little bit easier, because it's like, it seems like the scariest are people who are actually in it and then they try to leave and then blow the whistle on it. But he was like never really in it.
Well, I have heard him say in a few other interviews that they showed up at his house, and I'm sure that they've probably threatened him. I wouldn't be surprised. I think he has said something. I know that they've like followed him, or they showed up at his mom's house and stuff like that. But I think that I don't know.
It's really weird. Yeah, they act like the CIA. They do. Like, literally. They get in, you know. I mean, they did that infiltration. I heard about that, and I asked him about Operation Snow White, and he said, most Americans don't know about it. I didn't know about it until we were researching for this interview. And I was like, what? They went into the government and actually, like, infiltrated so that they could get and steal documents, and this went on for years, and they're still running their church business, whatever it is. So that was creepy to know that, but then that just goes to show how they have a lot of money and power, so they were able to get away with it. But
who do they think they are? The CIA? Like,
that's what I'm saying. That's what he's saying. Is like, but they're like a little mini CIA. They just like go. I mean, not even mini. They're pretty big, but the CIA I think is still bigger. But geez, I mean, it was just, I thought, wow, these guys are trippers. But anyway, so we're out of time here. We're going to go ahead and close out, and we are appreciative of our guest today, Jamie DeWolf, and we hope that you guys check out his stuff and see his spoken word, because he's really good and he's funny, and he was a lot of fun to talk to today. So thank you all for listening. Until next time, peace, truth, and love.
Peace, truth, and love, guys. Bye.
Don't you want devoted followers who leave their families for you, give their money to you, give their bodies to you, give up their lives for you, consider you God, and will kill for you?
I love you.
Don't you want to become a cult leader? Since the death of God, there's been a vacancy open. You could fill that void. Here's how. Structure your cult like an onion, with the most benign and helpful features on the outside and the most controlling, kooky, and evil parts of the secret inner core. Use deception. Don't tell them who you really are. Lie. Leave out important information or distort information.
Are you trying to recruit me? No. I'm just trying to share something meaningful with you.
Establish front groups.
We're a Bible study group. We're a management course.
We're a
a meditation center.
We're a world peace organization. We're a personal development center.
We're a drug rehab center.
Promise to fulfill their dreams.
Don't you want a world of unconditional love and brotherhood? We have the secrets to self-improvement. You can join our Sunday special. Join our elite mission to save the world.
We can teach you special powers. Personal power.
Psychic power.
Past life connection. Telekinesis.
Offer them something free and get them to feel obliged to give you something in return.
Well, we gave you that free dinner. The least you could do is come to our weekend intensive.
You can tell them time is running out and that they must make their decision now or it will be too late.
This is your only chance to make it. Don't blow it.
It's important to make this commitment now.
This is an issue of burning urgency.
Don't give them time to think. Diminish doubting commiseration by separating your new recruits from each other. Surround them with happy, true believers, so when in doubt, they will tend to do what everyone around them is doing and believe that is normal. Start with a prolonged period of love bombing. Surround them with unconditional love and attention. Your cult family should act friendly and interested. Get information and hone their weak spots.
Tell us about yourself.
Take this personality test.
And then use this information to manipulate them.
Gradually, over time, you'll begin to shape the recruit's behavior by granting or withholding this love and attention. After they've bonded, slowly start making your demands upon them. The message being,
nothing in this world has value unless it relates to the leader or the ultimate purpose.
control their behavior.
Come live with us.
Wear these clothes.
Eat this food. All you need is 2 hours sleep.
Prescribe a rigid schedule. Keep them active and with as little sleep as possible. If you can, restrict their eating habits to low-protein food. Control their thoughts.
Our ideology answers all questions to all problems.
Let our doctrine think for you.
Control their emotions. Induce guilt.
The United States dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima.
People are dying of starvation.
People are dying of starvation.
You are not living up to your potential.
You are not living up to your potential.
You cheated on that test.
And fear.
The enemy will electroshock you, torture you,
Kill you, or carry you off to hell.
Control information. Keep them from knowing all the workings of the cult.
Block out any information which is critical of the group.
Encourage members to spy and report on one another. Separate the recruit from himself by attacking the self and inducing a mental breakdown disguised as a spiritual awakening. When they start to freak out, have side effects, or hallucinate, tell them they are flushing out the bad stuff inside.
When I was meditating, I felt an infinite emptiness. It was utterly terrifying. No, this is good. You're transforming. Do it more.
you are reaching God. You're being reborn. You are becoming one with the universe, one with our family.
Make them paranoid about their own bodies or thought processes.
You're battling your sinful nature. Your body is detoxifying.
Tell them that there is a part of their mind they must eliminate in order to find happiness.
You must eliminate the toxic mind.
Your ego is the source of all your problems. I don't know who I am anymore.
Good. Now you're free. In fact, there was no you there to begin with.
Claim authority. It can come from a divine source.
Your Bible clearly states that I am the Messiah.
Bogus scientific research.
Scientific studies prove my techniques work.
Or special knowledge.
I am the enlightened master of the universe.
Make up stories about yourself to boost your importance.
I invented air. I have special access to the aliens.
But don't be stupid about it. Start slowly. A good con man takes a little bit of truth and a lot of lies and pulls the wool over the eyes of the ignorant. Induce trance states and self-hypnosis by practicing thought-stopping rituals and repetitive acts like dancing. Spinning without doubt. Practice prolonged hours of meditation. In these trance states, they are more receptive and suggestible. Revert them back to childhood dependence and mindless obedience. Encourage separation from their family.
Your friends and family probably won't understand. Your friends and family probably won't understand.
It doesn't sound like your family and friends really love you if they can't support your new decision.
Maybe you should stay away from them. It's unhealthy for you to be around unenlightened people anyway.
If you can't recruit your friends, cut off from them.
Stop wasting time with non-believers. Stop wasting time with non-believers.
Encourage dependency and conformity, and discourage autonomy and individuality.
The whole purpose must be the focus. The self-purpose must be subordinated.
The whole purpose must be the focus. The self-purpose must be subordinated.
Have confessionals where people demonize their early lives and only praise their life in the group. Rewrite the past as terrible, even if it was great.
Before I came to eMerge, I was a bad person. I was greedy, misguided, self-centered, and lost. My life is wonderful now. I hate my old life.
Before coming to eMerge, I was always in my ego. My toxic mind was running my life. I was a sinful, negative loser. Thanks to the leader, every day I'm a winner.
Isolate them from the rest of the world. Make them feel part of a special elite group with an important mission.
Monuments and historical landmarks will someday be erected to commemorate us and our sacrifices.
Tighten your group's bond by establishing scapegoats and enemies. Demonize outsiders as less than human, biased, corrupt, or conspiring against the group. Develop an us versus them mentality, fighting resistance. Tell them their critical thoughts are evidence that they have committed crimes against the group. Start investigating them and make up crimes.
I think I want to leave.
You must be insane.
Make them feel guilty.
We're doing important work here.
You expect saving the world is easy?
We're all called upon to make some sacrifices for the cause.
Just when things get tough, you want to give up.
You're weak.
Do you want to move forward toward freedom and enlightenment? Or do you want to fall back into your old dirty ways?
What's more important, our mission?
Our family?
Eternal salvation?
Or your petty grievances?
You're being negative,
Ignorant
selfish.
and sinful.
Our leader is flawless.
The doctrine is flawless.
There must be something wrong with you.
There must be something wrong with you.
There must be something wrong with you.
There must be something wrong with me. There must be something wrong with me.
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is.
Indoctrinate with fear. Tell them that they could be possessed by evil spirits, or suggest that if they should ever leave, something bad could happen to them.
I'm just warning you that without us, you're liable to get into a bad accident, get sick, or even die.
I'm warning you. Without us, you're likely to get into a bad accident, get sick, or even die.
If you leave, you'll just be reincarnated into a lower life form.
Make it easier for them to die for you by calling their bodies containers that are shed before they evolve into higher life forms. It's that simple. Now, don't you want to become a cult leader? Don't you want devoted followers who leave their families for you, give their money to you, give their bodies to you, give up their lives for you, and will kill for you?
I will do what you say for the cause. I will leave my family for the cause. I will give you my money for the cause. I will give you my body for the cause. I will die for the cause. I will kill for the cause. I love you.